Hey guys, I want to teach you a tool called the 5 appeals. Now I know that in your small group you're never going to need to use this, but I want you to learn it anyway because you might be able to coach somebody else's small group. All right, because this is what happens. In your small group, I know everything always goes perfectly and you never have to rein somebody in who's kind of out of bounds. But in my small group sometimes, what happens is I get somebody who wants to I'm trying to go this way and they kind of want to go off the rails, right? Sometimes this is relatively innocent. Sometimes it's pretty serious. But this is the process that I use for getting people back to where they need to be for us to make progress as a group. This is kind of how I rein in the Lone Rangers, people who are going off the trail. This is it. It's the 5 appeals. And I don't know if you're a card player. I know that depending on your background, card playing might be, prohibited because it might lead to dancing or something. But I grew up playing cards, playing euchre, and so I think of these as my 5 trump cards that I get to play, right? Or if you're maybe if you're a rancher or something, these are the 5 sticks that you get to use to put that sheep or that cow back in line, right? So I'm not encouraging beating animals with sticks. I'm just these are the tools that we get to use to get someone back in line when we're trying to go this way. All right. So there's 5 appeals you get to make. Now this is the important thing. All the appeals can be made publicly or privately, and all of the appeals need to be made in this order. Once you play a bigger trump card, you can't go back and play a smaller one. All right. If you've played euchre, you understand how this works. Once you play the big one, you can't go back and play the small one. So you play them. Not all of them will be appropriate in every situation, and it's up to you as the leader to figure out how to use the tool wisely. Okay, but this is what you got at your disposal. All right, so you get 5 appeals. Let's say little Johnny. I started out leading small groups for middle schoolers and high schoolers, so that's kind of where I go. But let's say somebody in your group, doesn't have to be little Johnny. Somebody in your group is causing trouble. They won't stop talking. They won't stop interrupting people. They keep talking about something that's outside the bounds of what you're trying to do in group. They keep trying to sell their multi-level marketing thing, like whatever the thing is that you're experiencing. This is how we solve it. The first appeal we get to make is the appeal to decency. The appeal to decency is our first appeal. All right. The appeal to decency is most people want to be either they want to be decent people, or at least they want to be thought of as decent people, right? And so this is basically everything I needed to know I learned in kindergarten. So what happens when Sue keeps talking over somebody else in the group? I'm gonna approach Sue privately if possible, publicly if not, and I'm gonna say, hey, listen. I don't know if you noticed this or not, but you just kept interrupting this person that was in the group, and I don't know if you noticed that you were doing that, but it was kind of rude, and I just wanted to make sure that you didn't, that you were aware that was going on, and maybe you might want to stop that, right? So we're not bringing out rule books. We're not doing anything like that. What we're doing first is we're just appealing to the decency of the person, all right? The second appeal we get to make is the appeal to leadership. Now here, this is kind of funny, but here's how this works. And it's not true all the time, but it's often true. That if someone is capable of derailing your small group and pulling them off, then what that means is that person actually has leadership skill. Because if they didn't have leadership, then they wouldn't be able to derail the group because the group would just ignore them when they went off kilter. Does that make sense? And so being able to recognize that for what it is really helpful. I have, on a number of occasions, with adults and with teenagers, I have seen people that had leadership skill that was poorly applied, and was able to kind of get that in harness. So the time that I learned this, though, I was I don't know, in my early 20s. I was leading the middle school group, and there was one kid in particular who was he was awful. He was the worst kid in the whole group. It killed me to have him in group, because every time his name was actually Billy. And every time this kid over here would start to talk, Billy would just jump in with an inappropriate joke or sarcastic comment or whatever. And so I was really getting frustrated with him. And I thought about it, and I went to him and I said, hey, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but the kids in the group really look up to you. And he was like, what? He comes from his whole home was a mess. There's all kinds of stuff. I said, yeah, man, I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but everybody really pays attention when you talk. And I'm having trouble, Billy. I'm having trouble with this kid over in the corner, whose name I don't remember. Johnny, maybe. I'm just saying Johnny because little kids are always Johnny. I don't know if you've noticed, but I can't get Johnny to talk. Now, internally, I'm thinking the reason I can't get Johnny to talk is because you keep interrupting him, you little freak. But what I said to Billy was, hey, I can't get Johnny to talk, but I think all the kids in the group really look up to you. Do you think you could help me get Johnny out of his shell a little bit? Billy's like, yeah, I could do that. Right? And so the next week I ask a question, and then Billy says, what do you think, Johnny? And Johnny's like, he answers. That night I met privately with Billy. I was like, dude, good job. Billy ended up growing into a high schooler. He became a small group leader in high school, and then ended up going into the military, interestingly enough, and became a leader, a great leader. But I never would have thought it when I first saw him, because I just saw a punk kid. But what it is, it's kind of like, if we're using old movie references, it's kind of like The Man from Snowy River. Remember The Man from Snowy River? There's this Mustang, and if he can get that Mustang in harness, man, it's going to do more work than any of his other horses. The people that are in your group that are troublemakers, maybe, not 100%, maybe if you could get them in harness, they could pull for you and do more work than anybody else you could have imagined. All right. So the second appeal we make is the appeal to leadership, if it's appropriate. The third appeal we're going to make is the appeal to norms. And what this means is that if you're in a bar and somebody walks in, everybody says, no, it's not that kind of norm. Okay. What this is, the appeal, you could also say appeal to rules, right? Appeal to standards. What this is that there are, in every group, there are spoken and unspoken norms of here's how the group works. And your job as a leader is to both help set those and then call back to those. So I was in a men's group for 3 years. It was a great group for me. It really helped me a lot. We had a rule, no fixing, all right? Because we eventually did it because somebody would come and they'd be like, man, I'm really struggling in my marriage right now. My wife and I are kind of fighting a lot. And all the guys would try to jump in. Hey, have you read this book? Hey, have you done this? Hey, well, you need to take her out on a date. Hey, and it's like, guys, I just needed to tell you this was going on. I'm not asking for everybody's input all the time. And so we had a rule that in the group there was no fixing. Now, if you wanted to talk afterwards and do stuff like that, you could do that. But in the time that we were discussing, there was no fixing in the group. Now, we set that norm, and then we always had to come back to it. And so it's worth it for you to have regular conversations in the group. Hey, what's going well? What's not? What do we like? What do we not? And what needs to change? And then what happens is you get to call back to those things over time. And so somebody will say, well, I really like the fact that, I feel like what is said here kind of stays here. Okay, great. Then what you need to, then later on you're able to say, wait, we're not taking this out, right? Or somebody says, oh, well, what I really like about this group is that I feel like we're all able to share here. And so then what you're able to do, if somebody's interrupting somebody or something like that, you can say, oh, well, wait. We said that this was a group that we all can share. This person over here is sharing. You need to let them share, right? All right, the next appeal you get to make is the appeal to friendship or to relationship. You could put this either way. And the way this works is I've had people come in, and I'm leading a group, and they come in and torpedo the group, right? They're cracking jokes when I don't need them to crack jokes. I'm trying to be real serious about something. I'm trying to get something across. They're interrupting me, whatever. After we've played the smaller cards and we start playing the bigger cards, I will pull them aside afterwards and say, hey, are you mad at me? Like what just happened in there? Because I thought we were cool, and that was not cool. Like, you just cut the legs out from under me. That's not okay. I appeal to the actual relationship I have with the person. Now, again, you have to use your judgment as to whether or not you have enough of a relationship to actually draw on. But that's something to consider. The last appeal you get to make is the appeal to authority. You remember the substitute teacher that you had in middle school that said, you will respect me because I am the teacher. And then you're like, well, we really don't respect you now. Don't ever appeal to your authority as the small group leader. If there's a problem that you can't fix and it has gone through these things, then the next conversation is, hey, I think we're going to need to get, I don't know that we can get any farther with this. I'm going to need to bring in a heavy hitter, right? I'm going to need for our coach to come in. The coach might say, I'm going to need to get Micah to come in. Micah might come in. I can't fix him. Hey, I'm going to have to get, Jess Adkins in here. Jess might say, I need to get David involved. David might say, I need to get the elders involved. There is a chain of authority that we can appeal to work our way up. Now, you don't want to start there, right? If the first time somebody is mouthing off in group and you go immediately to, I will get the senior pastor in here, right? Well, then you can't go back later and say, oh, I think you have good leadership skills, right? We have to use these sequentially. We have to use them in order. So the first appeal we get to make is the appeal to decency. People want to be thought of as decent people. We appeal to their innate decency and like, hey, don't be a jerk, right? The second appeal we get to make is the appeal to leadership. Appeal to leadership is just, hey, you've got skills, and I would like for you to use them for the betterment of the group. The third appeal we get to make is the appeal to norms, right? Appeal to norms is, no, that's weird. This is how we do things here. That's not how we do things. And so one of the best tools at your disposal as a leader is you get to define normal. So when you say, no, normal is that we do not make fun of each other when we're sharing. Or normal is we make sure that everyone gets a chance to talk. Or normal is whatever normal is, right? Fourth appeal you get to make is the appeal to friendship. The appeal to friendship is literally, I am drawing on my relationship with you personally to resolve this problem that we have in the group. And the last appeal you get to make is the appeal to authority. When in doubt, you're not in this alone. You're not Lone Ranger. Go get a bigger gun, right? And so come bring me in, bring one of our coaches in, bring one of the staff in, if that's what needs to happen. Now I'll say, there's only been a couple times in my life that we've had to go to this level. It's very possible that you'll lead a small group for 10 years and never have to do this right here, because that's kind of the nuclear option. But the nuclear option exists, all right? So that's all I've got. That's the 5 appeals. And if you can learn that, if you can use that when you have a problem in the group that needs resolving, I think that you'll find that this will get you through most problems pretty easily, pretty straightforward, pretty well. So thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.